Hi, everyone. Over the next few days, I will be, in essence, starting a new series based on seven sources of joy, which is based on a devotional by John Piper. And yeah, like in this video, I'll go through the first of them. And I think the entire influence, I think when we read 2 Corinthians 7:4, we hear Paul say, "In all our affliction, I am overflowing with joy." And one of Paul's defining traits is that despite the situation he's in, we see him getting thrown into jail every second chapter. Despite all the pain he's put through, he's still like overflowing with joy, and he's still zealous in everything that he does. Here are 7 sources of joy, but here's the first one that us as Christians can draw from. The first is persecution, and it sounds like a bit of a curveball. How can we draw joy from persecution? Now, how we can do it is when we interpret it through the teachings of Christ. When we read Luke chapter 6, verses 22 to 23, "Blessed are you when people hate you. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy. Your reward is greater in heaven." What we understand is that when we're persecuted for Christ, our rewards in heaven compounds like interest. And this is compounding lasts way longer. The rewards in heaven last way longer, significantly way longer than those on earth. And I think one of the biggest evidences that we're able to draw joy from persecution is because we find the most joyous or the most joy-filled Christians around the world. We don't find them in the West, where everything is comfortable, like life is comfortable. You have amazing medical systems, whether it be in America or here in Sydney, at least compared to the East and the persecuted nations, such as in Islamic countries or communist countries like China or even India, I'd say. But I'd like to also go deeper into 3 examples. The first is the apostles themselves. They were flogged in the Sanhedrin. But we read in Acts chapter 5, verses 40 to 42, we read that they were rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name. And they and they continued teaching daily, showing boldness despite physical punishment. And the next example is Polycarp of Smyrna. He was part of the early church in AD 155. He's a bishop. And after being sentenced to burn alive for refusing to deny Christ, he says, "I bless you, Father, for judging me worthy of this hour, so that in the company of martyrs, I may share the cup of Christ." So these people, they treat the position of being persecuted as a blessing, as they're being declared worthy to sit alongside the martyrs at the table of Christ and drink from the cup of Christ. Now, I think the more recent, I also like my third example is the more recent one, Richard Wurmbrand. He was a Romanian pastor in the 20th century, and he was imprisoned for 14 years under the communist regime. And despite the torture and the prisoning that he was going through, he was worshiping and singing in the prison cells, similar to what we see in with Paul and Silas. And he quotes, "We made a deal. We would preach, they would beat us. We were both happy," which I think is probably one of my favorite quotes to read on the topic of persecution. And there are millions, if not billions, other examples in history. My brothers and sisters in Christ, persecution is a privilege. Learn from countless examples, as the 3 I've given you just now, to draw joy from affliction, especially persecution. Anyways, have a nice evening, afternoon, morning, whatever.